Shalom, 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 shalom. As always, I want to give the praises and the glory to Yahawah, Sham, Yahawashi, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, our elders, our teachers. Shalom to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters who have been edified by the truth of the scriptures, of who we are and who the nations are. So, I just want to give you a quick update on what's going on. China and Brazil have dumped the US dollar in trading. They shall no longer be trading with each other using the US dollar. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly play this news report here that just came to my attention today, and then we're going to bring out some scriptures. The collapse of the American dollar is in progress. The collapse of the US dollar has been happening gradually over the last 10 years, but this is probably the year where it's going to totally fall, totally collapse the American dollar. This is probably the year that they're going to have to bring out the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, in dollars, because the American dollar is on a free fall. And countries are openly now making it public that they're no longer going to be trading in the US dollar. So the latest news, Saudi Arabia is looking into this. They're going to make a decision on this month with China, whether to trade with them with the US dollars in oil, because China is the biggest buyer of oil from Saudi Arabia. But the breaking news was that they just made it public. Brazil and China have publicly declared that they're dumping the US dollar in their trade. So let me play this news clip. She'll give it in a bit more detail in this news clip, and then we're going to bring out a few scriptures. All right? Do what we do best.
The dollar is facing a revolt. The world knows it as the king of currencies, but the dominance of the dollar is now under threat. More and more countries are looking for alternatives, and China's yuan is emerging as a clear challenger. Beijing is pursuing a string of deals. The latest one is with Brazil. Brazil and China are ditching the dollar. From now on, they'll use their own currencies for trade. So China is pushing the yuan. What about the Indian rupee? It's not far behind. The Indian rupee is also emerging as a serious contender. And why are these trends significant? Because currencies drive commerce. The dollar's dominance gives the US an outsized influence on the global economy, and a shift away from the dollar will only hurt America. It will also hasten the rebalancing of the global economy. In the next few minutes, we'll look at this trend and where this is going. First, the events in Brazil. Brazil announced the deal yesterday, and it did not come out of the blue. The agreement had been in the works for a while. A preliminary pact was signed in the month of January. It laid the foundations of the final agreement, and it's a fairly simple deal. Earlier, Brazil and China used the US dollar for trade. Now they will deal in their native currencies. China will use the yuan, and Brazil will use the Brazilian reais. How does it help? It will save costs. Look at the official statement from Brazil. This is what it says. The expectation is that this will reduce costs, promote even greater bilateral trade, and facilitate investment. China is Brazil's biggest trading partner. Last year, their bilateral trade was worth over $150 billion. So it makes sense for Brazil to ditch the dollar. But what's in it for China? Beijing is on a mission. It wants to internationalize the yuan. It is building a large coalition of partners. These are countries that will use the yuan instead of the US dollar, and Beijing has made considerable progress in this direction. It has secured bilateral pacts with 41 countries so far. The total value of these agreements is more than $500 billion. So the yuan is gaining international acceptance. And the petro-yuan is rising. Now, what is the petro-yuan? It's not a different currency. Petro-yuan is simply using the yuan to settle oil bills, just like the petrodollar. And China is making an aggressive push for this. It is finding takers in oil-producing nations. Russia, for instance, it has embraced the yuan. So have Iran, Venezuela, and some African nations. Now, reports say Saudi Arabia is also considering the switch from the dollar to the yuan. And this is going to be a very important development. We know that Riyadh has been at odds with Washington and is getting closer to Beijing. But ditching the dollar will be a decisive move. Meanwhile, the Indian rupee is also competing in this race. Last year, India's Reserve Bank made a move. It allowed international trade settlements in the Indian rupee. It's still early days, but India has made progress. Banks in 18 countries have shown interest. They've opened special accounts, and these accounts will help them settle trade payments in the Indian rupee. And these are the countries we're talking about. They're ditching the dollar. They want to use the Indian rupee for trade with India. Earlier this year, Brazil and Argentina floated an idea. They're thinking about a common currency for South America. Halfway across the world, Southeast Asia too is losing patience with the US dollar. In Africa, countries like Kenya are dumping the dollar. They'll use the Kenyan shilling for oil imports. So here's a question. Why is all of this happening now? Why is there a global rebellion against the dollar? Also, how did the dollar become the world's reserve currency? It happened after the Second World War in the year 1944. 44 allied countries met at Bretton Woods in the US. 44 countries came together. They wanted to avoid another financial turmoil, so they created a system, a set of rules that would shape the global economy as we know it today. It led to the creation of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, also the World Bank. The Allies also agreed to a new exchange rate system. Each country pegged the value of its currency to the US dollar, and that's how the American dollar gained its dominance. The Bretton Woods Conference gave the US immense power to dominate the global economy. It created two financial institutions, the IMF and the World Bank, largely controlled by America. And they're still quite powerful and still led by the US. As for the dollar, it is still widely used, both inside and outside the US. About $1 trillion notes are in circulation outside America. Some 40% of the world's debt is issued in US dollars. Nearly 60% of the global currency reserves are in US dollars, and close to 90% of all foreign exchange trade involves the US dollar. The world economy is hooked to the dollar, but now it wants to give up this addiction, but it will not happen overnight. The dollar's downfall, though, has begun.
Absolutely. The dollar's downfall truly has begun. Truly has begun. So, we are seeing a de-dollarization. More countries are seeking alternatives to the US dollar. We are seeing a de-dollarization happening around the world at fast pace because they're getting ready for the collapse of the US dollar. Now, we've been speaking on this, the brothers. We've been speaking on this, the brothers that have been preaching. We have been speaking on this for a very, very long time. So we're seeing a de-dollarization, just like you said. The US dollar has dominated the global trade and capital flows for decades. However, many nations are looking for alternatives to the greenback to reduce their dependency on the US. What you must understand as well, they have seen how the US has seized the Russia's reserve currencies in US dollars that they've had in these Western banks because of the war in Ukraine. So Russia's not had access to their US dollar reserve currencies that are sitting in Western banks, right? Which is, they say it's around 300 to 400 billion dollars that the Russians have got sitting in Western banks. This is one of the reasons why you're seeing a fast pace in the reduction of the US dollar. Countries are now moving away. So this is what she was talking about here, the timeline of the dollar's dominance. In the 1920s, the dollar began to displace the pound sterling, which is the UK pound, as an international reserve currency after the First World War. The United States was a significant recipient of wartime gold inflows. In 1944, The international trade is conducted using US dollars under the Bretton Woods Agreement, which is what she just spoke on, all right? Which is when they created the IMF and the World Bank. In 1960, the European and Japanese exports become more competitive with US exports. There is a large supply of dollars around the world, making it difficult to back dollars with gold. So this is when Richard Nixon in 1971, he seized the direct convertibility of US dollars to gold. This is when Nixon removed the US dollar from the gold standard. So you no longer had to have X amount of gold in your central banks for you to print money. This is where the whole system, this was the beginning of the collapse of the US dollar in 1971, when they removed the US dollar from the gold standard. That was the beginning. Now we're at the end. And you know what happens at the end? It moves in quick time, fast pace, fast pace. We're going to see it collapse. In 1981, all years of hyperinflation, after years of hyperinflation, the US dollar loses 2/3 of its purchasing power in 1981. 2007, 2008, what do we have? We have the global financial crisis. Investors were seeking US dollars, expecting the currency to retain its value. 2014, following the annexation of Crimea, Russia prioritizes de-dollarization in response to the Western sanctions. So Russia began the process in 2014 when they annexed Crimea from Ukraine. Now they're in this full-blown war in Ukraine. The US has seized the Russians' US dollars reserve currency, which they've got sitting in Western banks. 2023, Brazil and Argentina discussed the creation of a common currency. That's in the progress. They want to have a common currency that they can trade on, that they can use to trade with China. Now, the fact that Brazil has just agreed with China to no longer trade in US dollars is going to make that process between Brazil and Argentina even more, it'll be more simpler for them to do it now. The UAE and India explore the use of rupees to trade non-oil commodities, which he just spoke on. Russia and Iran are working together to launch a cryptocurrency backed by gold, because this is where it's all going. Crypto, CBDC, central bank digital currency, but they're going to have to back it with gold. This is why Russia and China and India over the last 15 years have been buying up gold everywhere, literally storing up gold. So over here, 2022, central banks buy gold at the fastest pace since 1967 because they know the dollar's going to collapse as countries diversify their reserves away from the dollar. They're buying up the gold because they know the dollar's going to collapse, which means at some point, the price of gold is going to explode. It may triple, quadruple by the end of the year, but it's going to explode, the price of gold, because this is what the central banks have been doing, because they're preparing for the collapse of the dollar. Just like I said, the war in Ukraine results in Western sanctions against Russia. As a result, Russia and China deepen cooperation between their financial systems, with ruble to yuan trade increasing 80-fold in 8 months. So Russia and China only trade in ruble and yuan between each other. They don't use the US dollar no more. Everyone's trying to offload it, get rid of it, spend it, get rid of it, give it back to America. That's beautiful. So it says, despite these movements, few expect to see the end of the dollar's global sovereign status anytime soon. Currently, central banks still hold about 60% of foreign exchange reserves in dollars. And this is why they're trying to offload it, because they know it's going to collapse. They know it's going to collapse. Now, even the trade between the BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, has overtaken the G7 in the global GDP. But the mainstream media ain't telling you that. The Indian-based Make Updates platform, one of the world's largest online informational platforms in terms of views, has stated that BRICS countries have officially overtaken the G7, which is Britain, France, Germany, America, Japan, Canada. I can't think of the last one. If it's Australia, can't think of the last 7 years. Anyway, in share of world PPP and GDP. And that this trend can be expected to continue. This is why they're getting rid of it, because the BRICS are the new players for now. But this is why America is instigating a war with China and Russia, because they don't want to allow them to become the next superpowers. But as we continue to tell you, the next superpower is going to be Yahawashi and the children, the elect of Israel. The next superpower is going to be the Israelites. These nations are going to go to war because of this, what's happening here. The BRICS are overtaking the G7. America is not going to allow. This is why America is selling Taiwan all of these arms and propping up Taiwan. This is why you saw the Taiwanese president on her way to Guatemala stopped off in America a couple of days ago and did like a quick whistle stop tour in America. And they said it was just a stopover flight on her journey to Guatemala, because Guatemala is one of the few countries that still recognizes Taiwan as independent. Now, you saw the Hondurans in Honduras the other day, they relinquished ties with Taiwan and gone back to dealing with China. So right now, Taiwan only has 13 countries in the world that recognizes Taiwan as an independent country, while the rest of the world don't recognize them as an independent country. But America is fueling that. That's why they're arming Taiwan. Because just like how they're using Ukraine as a springboard to try to destroy Russia by arming Ukraine to fight against Russia, they're going to do the same thing with the Taiwanese. They've been arming Taiwan with weapons galore, selling them all sorts of weapons in preparation for China to take down Taiwan, because they want to see if they can weaken China, like how they thought they could weaken Russia, by using the Taiwanese as a springboard, just like how they use Ukraine as a springboard to fight a proxy war against Russia. But as we continue to tell you, these wars, these proxy wars are going to lead to the full head-on war between the two. But first, these global systems and money systems will collapse and they will all go digital. We tell you this and we tell you again, the microchip will come into play on a global scale before two major powers, Russia, America, and China, before these major powers go to war, which we can consider the three NATO. We're fighting against these countries, with America leading the charge. So the whole system is getting ready to collapse for it to go digital first, for the CBDCs to come into play. Martial law will happen in America. You see what's going on in America with Donald Trump, right? They've got all these trumped up charges to arrest Donald Trump, saying he's got to turn himself in by Tuesday of next week into the Manhattan District Attorney for these trumped up charges against that porn star. They keep referring to her as some adult film actress. She's not an adult film actress. She's a porn star. She's a $5 hoe that sells herself, makes porn movies, right, for the whole world to see. I always say at least prostitutes have some dignity. A prostitute will meet someone, take them back to their private dwelling, take their money, have sex with them, and then they go about their business. And they're doing it because they're either on drugs or they got no other means of paying for their house or their children or so forth and so on, right? They bring them back to their private quarters, they have sex, and they, the man pays, and then they go about their business after. But a porn star is the worst of the worst kind of woman that you could find, because she's not just having sex for money, she's having sex so that the whole world can see. She's making a movie about herself having sex with all sorts of men, all sorts of types of things. So she's the worst of all worst. And this is the woman who's the district attorney in Manhattan is using to charge Donald Trump with financial irregularities on how he paid her hush money. It's madness. But why are they doing this? Because they are gonna listen, they are inciting the right in America to come to take up arms against the left in America. They are inciting this. They are the elites in America, especially on the left. They are inciting this. They want the right to raise up against the left, because once that all hell breaks loose in America, then they can introduce martial law. Then they can introduce the microchip, the mark of the beast. Then the digital currency can become commonplace. But they are purposely, as if they're turning Donald Trump into a martyr, into a modern day martyr. Let's take the one man that they're all going to fight over on the right. So the right of America see this as an obscene act that the left are doing. But it's the elites that are doing it because they want to incite the right to fight against the left. So that way they can bring in martial law. They can try and come and take away their guns and all the rest of it and that. So there's a lot going on right now, believe me. And from that, they can introduce the microchip from that, the mark of the beast. So there's a lot going on. So while that's going on, and then they can try to get them to come together if they go to war against China or Russia, because once America's at war against China or Russia, then that's the one thing that always bands everyone together, right? Is if your country's at war. When your country's at war and you're taking casualties, that will bring the right and the left together after bringing them apart by what they are doing. So everything they're doing is for a reason. That's all I'm saying. Everything that these devils are doing, right? These elites are doing is for a reason. Believe me when I tell you. So the world is dumping the American dollar, and it's happening fast. It's happening fast. And we've always told you, boy, we don't put a trust in their money system, but it's always good to have a bit of gold or silver, because shit is about to happen. Believe me, shit is truly about to happen. And America, like I said, America is filled with debt. All right. Let's just quickly bring out a few scriptures here. Habakkuk, I did a lot of talking about, I haven't brought no scriptures, right? Habakkuk chapter 2, I want, right? Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5. It says, yea, also because he's transgressed by wine, that's America, by his philosophies, his ways, he is a proud man. That's America. Especially the Edomites that control America. He is a proud man. This is America. Neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, because he's about to bring hell on his own people, and he's also looking to bring hell on China and Russia, because everything that he is doing, he's been poking the bear for the last 12 months, right? He's been poking the bear for the last 12 months. Now he's poking he's been poking the polar bear, the brown bear in Russia for the last 12 months, right? Now he's starting to poke the what do you call it, the koala bear, because you know they have a lot of koala bears in China. He's poking China now. Who enlarges his desire as hell. Hell is the grave, right? And is as death. And he cannot be satisfied. He can't be satisfied because he is watching. He is watching the dollar being de-dollarization. He's watching the countries seek alternatives to the US dollar. So he's not going to sit by idly and watch this. And remember, these countries know, right? Remember, they're looking at, we go to the debt clock, right? They're looking at America's debt, right? And they know. And we've said this time and time again, right? The United States is never going to be able to pay this debt. The American government is never going to be able to pay off their national debt. $31 trillion. Never, never, never. It's like monopoly money now we're dealing with. This is like playing Monopoly and keep on. And every time you're losing, you go to another Monopoly again and you take the money from that Monopoly again and you add it to the game you're playing, which makes the money worth less. And then when you run out of money again, you open up a new Monopoly game, you take the money out of that Monopoly game and you add it to the game that you're playing. This is what America's been doing, playing Monopoly over and over and over again by taking money from other Monopoly games and adding it to the one that they're playing. So they know they're never gonna, they know this dollar is gonna lose every single value that it thought it had. And it has been losing its value. It's lost 90% of its value since 1923, over the last 100 years. So they know this, they can see this. But like I said, this is what America's watching. How countries are moving away fast, quick and fast. So, back to Habakkuk. He cannot be satisfied. Babylon the Great can't be satisfied. I hope you're listening, Vocab Malone. Because that country that you love so much, my friend, is coming to an end. It's coming to an end. But gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. And that's what he's done. That's what America has done. Gathered unto him all nations, heaped unto him all people. It's referred to as a melting pot, America. Meant all of these nations that looked up to America, they no longer look up to that place. Shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taught proverb against him and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long? The clock is ticking, right? How long can they sustain this debt? How long are they going to continue using the US dollar? How long before they realize the gig is up and that dollar is not worth shit? It's going to be like the Weimar Republic. Look that one up. The Weimar Republic, Germany, 1933. Look that up. So it says, how long? How long? And to him that lathers himself with thick clay. Now, just for edification's sake, we're going to the Hebrew word of thick clay, because I know you know this, but we do this for edification. I'm preaching to the choir. Thick clay, weight of pledges, heavy debts. How long will he ladder himself up with thick clay, heavy debts, weight of pledges? How long can this continue? You see, the gig is up. You see, certain countries ain't going to be saying to other certain countries, look, you need to de-dollarize because it's going to collapse. It's like a bank run. It's like all of these countries are doing a bank run on America. They're all de-dollarizing. They're all getting out, taking their money out and converting their dollars into different currencies, or they're spending their dollars, or they're using it to buy gold. They're all trying to get rid of their dollars. They're doing a bank run on the American dollar. America's the bank. These other countries are like the customers, and they're all doing a bank run on America, getting rid of, except they're withdrawing their bank run is called a de-dollarization. They're looking for alternatives. So that's what's going on. The thick clays are heavy debts. That's America. It's beautiful. Things are truly accelerating. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee? And thou shalt be for booties unto them. It's going to become a booty unto these nations. But, like I said, the elites in America are playing a major hand in what's going on. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all of the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood and for the violence of the land. The violence of the land. America is built on blood. From the Native American Indians to the transatlantic slave trade, to the incarcerations, to the lynching. It's built on blood, and mainly the blood of the children of Israel. Today, who they call Native American Indians, also known as Latinos, Hispanics, Mexicans, and Puerto Ricans. Today, who they call the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. It's a country that's built on violence and blood, and there's more violence to come. Just like I said, the elites are the ones that are pushing for the right and the left to listen. They know what they're doing when they're arresting Donald Trump. Let me tell you. So you're going to see more violence in the land of the city and all that shall dwell therein, because of men's blood and for the violence of the land and of the city and all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high. That's why the dollar became the world reserve currency. It enabled America to set its nest on high, to become the number one, the superpower. But now it's all falling apart rapidly. That he may be delivered from the power of evil. Yeah, they tell you, listen. What scripture was I thinking of? The scripture was I thinking of Isaiah 33. Woe unto thee that spoilest, and thou was not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled, America. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they, your allies, your friends, your enemies, and your frenemies, they shall deal treacherously with thee. And that's how they see it, boy. These countries are dealing their game behind America's back, making these deals. And not until it's been agreed and finalized, then they make it public knowledge. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. That's all I can say. Absolutely beautiful. So you go back to Habakkuk. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe unto him that buildeth a town with blood. That's America. And establish a city by iniquity. Iniquity. And that's what America's is being established on iniquity. It's all getting ready to go down in flames. Let me grab one more precept before we shut this down. It's all getting ready to go down in flames. The book of Sirach, Ecclesiasticus, which is the book of Sirach. Hold on. Verse 10, chapter 10, I believe I want. Hold on. Chapter 10 I want. Yeah, here it is. Ecclesiasticus chapter 10 verse 8. And this is why I say China, if they're going to be the next superpower, it's not going to be Russia, it's not going to be some place in Africa, it's not going to be some place in South America, it's going to be the children of Israel. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches gotten by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. So once all is said and done, once the microchips in full play, the collapse of the American economy and the global economies, the microchips in play, they're gone to war in the Middle East. They're going head to head, America with Russia and China and their allies and NATO. Yahawashi, the angels are going to come to deliver the elect. To do what? The kingdom, this is Esau's kingdom that we're living in right now. This is the kingdom of the Edomites. It's going to be translated from one people to another. It's going to be translated from the Edomites to the Israelites. That's the end game. The kingdom shall be translated from one people to another. Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. That's the kingdom. The Bible tells us, right? The kingdom that it's referring to is Esau's kingdom, and we're just for edification, this is the kingdom, but all of this hell has got to take place first. This is the kingdom. For Esau the Edomites, the so-called white man, is the end of the world. And Jacob, the Israelites, is the beginning of it that follows. That's the kingdom that's going to be translated from one to another. From the Edomites, so-called white man, to the Israelites, to the true Israelites, the elect of Israel. That's the kingdom. But all of this, all of what you see going on has to take place. So get ready for more. Get ready for more uproars, more news, more things to take place in these coming weeks. Believe you, because things are going to truly move fast. They're going to truly move fast. And the US are not going to sit back on it. All right. So I just really wanted to bring this to the forefront tonight. A little bit of more news to what's going on. As always, I pray you are edified. The world is dumping the American dollar. It's as clear as day. I want to give all the praises and the glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles, the elders of Great Millstone, and shalom to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters of the elect of Israel. As I always say, keep praying, keep safe, and hold on to this truth. Because things are, listen, it's like what Apostle Orion Lab said earlier today. He mentioned something. He said that you can't, what did he say? Apostle Orion Lab said today, one of the apostles, he said, there's so much things happening in the news, it's impossible to keep up with it all. So this is what we're going to do. A brother may bring out that information, a brother may bring out a certain information, because one person can't bring it all out. There's so much going on right now amongst the nations in Babylon the Great and around the world that one person can't bring it all out. So we may miss stuff here and there, but we're here. The true men of the Lord are here. So shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises, family.